My name is Anna, and this is the story of how I learned that true love sometimes means holding on tight, and other times means knowing when to let go. I met Rafael during a summer afternoon when I was 22. He worked as a mechanic at my father's auto shop, and I was bringing my car in for service. I remember his eyes deep, intense, but with a shadow I didn't yet understand. There was a sadness in them that intrigued me from the start. We dated for a year before I discovered the secret he carried. Rafael had been struggling with addiction since his teens, but was in recovery when we met. When he finally told me, crying on my porch one Sunday night, I didn't hesitate. "We'll fight this together," I promised, holding his trembling hands. "Your past doesn't define who you are today." We married 6 months later in a simple ceremony with only our closest family. My parents were apprehensive, but they saw how much I loved Rafael, how determined he was to conquer his demons. The early years were a constant battle. Rafael attended Narcotics Anonymous meetings 3 times weekly, and I joined him on Wednesdays, holding his hand as he shared his struggles. I worked as a secretary by day and picked up extra shifts waitressing at a local diner at night, while Rafael kept his job at the shop. When I got pregnant with Pedro, our first child, Rafael stayed clean for 9 months, his longest period of sobriety since we'd met. He said he wanted to be present, completely present, for our son. "You showed me I'm stronger than I thought," he told me the night Pedro was born, holding our son with tears in his eyes. 2 years later, Laura arrived. We were a struggling but united family. Our big dream was to buy a house, a place truly ours, where we could raise our children away from the rented apartments we'd always known. It took 8 years of rigorous saving to gather enough for a down payment. I worked overtime that hurt my soul, coming home late with swollen feet from long hours standing, yet still finding energy to help the kids with homework before collapsing into bed. During this period, I took a position as an administrative assistant at a construction company where I learned about real estate during breaks. I watched the realtors, studied financing options, understood how people acquired properties. This knowledge would prove crucial years later. Rafael stayed clean for most of this period, with minor relapses that broke my heart. But he always returned to meetings, always picked himself up. The house became our shared focus, the tangible symbol that we were winning our battles. I vividly remember the day we finally signed the house papers. Rafael held my hands in the notary's parking lot, his eyes misty. "You never gave up on me, Anna, even when I gave up on myself." The house was simple: 3 bedrooms, a living room that doubled as a dining area, a backyard where the children could play, but it was ours. We painted the walls together, gradually chose furniture, planted a tree in the yard that would grow alongside our family. These were good years, despite the fatigue that followed me like a shadow. I'd come home exhausted, but see my children running through the yard, see Rafael fixing something in the garage, and know every sacrifice had been worth it. Rafael always had a complicated relationship with his father. Sergio was a tough man who never understood his son's addiction, always treated him with disdain. When Rafael got clean, he tried reconnecting with his father, but the relationship remained strained. Sergio's death in a car accident hit Rafael like a physical blow. I saw the light leave his eyes the moment he received the news. He stood frozen in our living room, phone still in hand, and I knew with visceral certainty that we were in danger. In the days following the funeral, Rafael became a shadow of himself. Grief consumed him, and I tried reaching him through the fog of his mourning. I suggested therapy, returning to NA meetings, finding other ways to process the pain. "He died never truly loving me," Rafael said one night, looking at old photographs. "Never being proud of me?" I've tried to argue, reminding him that his recovery, his family, who he'd become, this was reason for pride, regardless of paternal recognition. But my words seemed to bounce off him without penetrating. The first relapse happened 2 months after Sergio's death. Rafael came home late, eyes glazed, speech slurred. When I confronted him, he broke down, promising it would be the last time, but it wasn't. The next 2 years were a nightmare I couldn't wake from. I watched helplessly as the man I loved sank deeper into the addiction we thought we'd conquered. I tried everything: couples therapy, interventions with NA friends, took him to different rehab centers. In a moment of clarity, he agreed to inpatient treatment. I felt hopeful during the 30 days he spent there, believing this time would be different. But 2 weeks after his release, he was using again. The money that had caused so much sweat began disappearing from our joint account. First small amounts, then larger sums. When I confronted Rafael, he denied it, then promised to stop, then lied blatantly. That's when I decided to open a separate account, secretly saving part of my salary. It was a practical decision, not out of distrust, but survival instinct for both me and the children. My heart shattered each time I saw our children's eyes. Pedro, now 12, understanding too much. Laura, 8, frightened by her father's transformation. Why is Daddy always sleeping? She asked me one afternoon after Rafael passed out on the couch, intoxicated. I tried to protect them, maintain an appearance of normality, but the house that had been our sanctuary became a silent battlefield. Meanwhile, at work, I'd been promoted to administrative coordinator with a significant raise Rafael didn't even notice. The moment of truth came on a Saturday afternoon. I arrived home after a double shift, exhausted but excited about my promotion to junior manager with a 40% higher salary. I found Rafael in the yard, with the children watching TV inside. He was clearly altered, and when I asked to talk about my promotion, he exploded. Always so superior. Always you, the perfect one, holding everything together, he shouted, eyes bloodshot. Now you'll make more than me. Huh? Think you're even better. I tried to calm him, but he continued, his voice filled with a resentment I'd never suspected. That's when Pedro appeared in the doorway, holding his sister's hand, their faces pale with fear, and I saw, through my children's eyes, the truth I'd tried to avoid. We were drowning, and Rafael was pulling us down with him. That night, after the children fell asleep, I sat alone in our living room, the room we'd chosen together, furnished together, where so many happy memories lived and did the math. I'd silently saved the equivalent of 3 months of my new salary. It was enough for the deposit and first month of a rented apartment. Then, in a moment of painful clarity, I understood. Loving someone doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until nothing remains. The next morning, I took the children to the park and sat with them on a secluded bench. We need to move out for a while, I explained, choosing my words carefully. Daddy is sick, and we need to let him heal while we take care of ourselves. Pedro, with wisdom beyond his years, simply nodded. Okay, Mom, we understand, Laura cried, wanting to know when we'd return home, to her pink room, to the tree we'd planted together. We'll have a new home, I promised, holding her tight. Smaller, but just ours. Confronting Rafael was the hardest thing I've ever done. He alternated between anger, denial, and despair, promising to change, accusing me of giving up on him. I'm not giving up on you, Rafael, I said, my voice trembling but firm. I'm choosing our children, and I'm choosing me. For 19 years, I fought by your side. Now I need to fight for them, and for myself. When he saw I wouldn't back down, his despair turned into a resignation that broke my heart. You deserve better than this, he whispered finally. They do too. We left home on a rainy Monday morning. The apartment I rented was small, 2 tiny bedrooms, a living room that served as an office, a compact kitchen. But it was clean, safe, and most importantly, our sanctuary. That first night, we all slept crowded in my bed, like we'd done when they were younger. I woke the next morning with a painful emptiness in my chest, but also with a spark of something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. With my new salary, I could afford a retired neighbor to pick up the children from school. This allowed me to focus more on work, where I continued advancing. 6 months after leaving, I was promoted to senior manager, responsible for the construction company's entire administration. That's when I started thinking beyond rent. I remembered what I'd learned about real estate. With help from the company's financial department, I created a plan to buy my own apartment. A year and a half after leaving our house, I got approved for a mortgage. The apartment wasn't large, 2 bedrooms, 70 square meters, but it was in a good neighborhood, close to schools and my work. The first night in our new home, still empty of furniture, the 3 of us sat on the living room floor, ate pizza, and dreamed about the rooms we'd furnish. It's better than the old house, Laura said, hugging me, because nobody yells here. Pedro, now 14, helped me paint the walls over the weekend. We chose colors together: blue for his room, pink for Laura, a soft green for the living room. While painting, he told me, "You're the strongest mom in the world, you know." Over time, we furnished the apartment gradually. I bought a sofa on installment, a dining table on sale, used cabinets we restored together. Every object told a story of our independence. I didn't completely cut ties with Rafael. He saw the children on weekends when he was sober, which, unfortunately, was rare initially. Each time I saw him, thinner, more aged, my heart ached, but I maintained firm boundaries. "I still care about you," I told him during one visit, "but I care enough not to let myself be destroyed by your addiction." He didn't respond, just nodded, his eyes avoiding mine. My professional growth continued. 2 years after buying the apartment, I'd already paid off 30% of the mortgage. With experience gained at the construction company, I started independent consulting for small businesses, further increasing my income. The children flourished in our new environment. Pager began technical school, getting interested in programming. Laura discovered a passion for dance and joined a studio with a scholarship. And I gradually rediscovered who I was, beyond wife, beyond caregiver, beyond survivor. Today, 3 years after leaving our house, I look back and see a woman who almost lost herself trying to save someone who didn't want saving. But I also see the strength born from that pain. With consulting money, I made an investment I'd never dreamed possible. I bought a small studio to rent. I'd finally become a real estate investor, ironically, using knowledge acquired at the construction company where I worked to support our family during the marriage. Rafael still fights his demons. Sometimes he stays clean for months, other times he relapses. I've learned to hope for his recovery without pinning my own hopes on it. Last month, I made the final payment on my car, a simple model, but brand new, bought outright with my savings. When I sat in the driver's seat after signing the papers, I remembered the woman who came home with aching feet after endless overtime shifts. Life isn't the fairy tale I imagined when I married at 23. It's more complex, more painful sometimes, but also more authentic. I taught my children and myself that starting over isn't a sign of defeat, but of courage. And every morning, when I wake in my apartment, fully paid off since last month, I remember that the greatest strength I discovered wasn't carrying someone on my back, but moving forward when the weight became too heavy and building, brick by brick, a life that's truly mine. The house we left behind, Rafa still lives there. Sometimes, I pass by it on my way to my rental studio. The walls need repainting. The yard is somewhat neglected, but the tree we planted together is still there, growing, reaching for the sun just like us. Only now I've planted my own trees, and they flourish in soil I've watered with my own hands.